The last time I showed this knife off, I was sharpening it and trying to thin it out. I realized how thick it was and it was going to be too much work for me to do on the stones. So I actually sent it off to Alex Steingraber for a regrind. He charged me a nominal fee, which in my opinion is way too low, but he says he wants to get regrinds in the hands of guys who may not be able to afford it otherwise, which is freaking fantastic. You got to give him props for doing that. I asked him to keep the knife kind of beefy because I use this at work, and if it's one of those knives that you can bend the edge with your fingernail, I'm just going to crack it. I'm going to crack it and I'm going to break the whole blade. So I asked him to keep it a little beefy for me, and other than that, I left it up to him. I told him, grind it however you want to. He kept the saber grind and just barely got into the billboarding. You can actually see right up here where he went through the swedge. Fantastic job. It's still fairly thick, but it's to a point now that if I wanted to thin it on stones, I wouldn't break my back doing it. As long as I stay on top of keeping it thin as I sharpen it, should never pose a problem. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to go ahead and sharpen it. Now I've used it a little bit at work, and I was going to bring this out and show you guys sooner, but my computer got fried. I had to order some new parts and wait for them to be delivered. Finally got my computer up and running, and I do all my video editing on my computer, which is why I was waiting on that. So in the meanwhile, I've used this knife at work a little bit, dulled up the edge, and ready to put my own on it. So without further ado, that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm just going to use my good old tried and true Shapton Pro stones. They are splash and go, and I've just flattened them so they're all fairly aggressive. Cut what edges on there off, and since this is pretty thin behind the edge, shouldn't take a lot of work. The plunge grind on this thing was terrible, and I'll try to insert some pictures Alex sent me before and after. And when you see how he evened it out, I think you'll be very impressed. I know I was. Of course, I knew before I sent the knife to him, the plunge grind was real janky. But I had no idea he'd be able to fix it as well as he did. I can't praise his work enough. If you guys want a regrind on one of your knives, look him up. Check him out on Instagram. He doesn't charge a lot of money. And when you get your knife back, you're going to be impressed. And it looks like I got a little bit of a feathering issue going on back here, where he's got it thinned out by the plunge grind. Not a big deal. I'm going to flip over, do the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going at my usual 18 to 20 degree angle, but every knife comes out different. So I'll measure this on the edge protractor when I'm all finished and see where the angle actually is. And if you're curious, I'll have that information in the description. Even after doing this, it looks like the bevel sizes are still a little wonky. This side's a little bit larger than this side, and I'm holding the same angle. But it's nowhere near as noticeable as it was when it was really thick. Just going to do a few more passes, clean it up just a little bit more. Up here in the tip, it widens just a little bit, but the tip does widen itself, so the bevel's just following what's there. Not a big deal. So that was 320 grit. This is my 1000 grit. Looks like it's sucking up a little water here. Already got a burr after 10 passes. Been asked this before about my pressure as I go back and forth on the stone. It's really difficult to describe, but as I go through my stroke, I'm using a U pattern. When I first start and go through the initial heel to tip stroke, I'm applying more pressure with this hand, my right hand, down near the heel, and my left hand is just holding the knife kind of steady. As I get to about this point, my pressure is about right here. I lighten up, and when I get to the tip, I put just a little bit of pressure with this hand. And as I come back on the rebound, I'm keeping that same amount of pressure all the way through till about right here. So the pressure now has moved to about this point, and then it'll lighten up again. So when I come back to this point, my pressure is reset, and I'm back to just basically the weight of the knife. So it's like a seesaw and a U shape all at the same time. So I've got pressure, pressure, no pressure, 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 no pressure. Really difficult to describe, but that's what I'm doing, and I do it the same way on both sides. So if you ever watch my metal swarf trail, you won't see, or rather you'll see it darken as I get to the tip, and then as I come back on the rebound, you'll see it darken as I get to the base. Like I said, it's very difficult to describe. That's the best I can do. Hopefully that makes sense to you. This is my 2000 grit. I've also been asked recently about belly knives. How do I get down into the belly? And if you've ever watched my sharpening tutorial, I basically twist the knife into the stone, and I'm not talking about heavy pressure here. I just let the knife right on the stone at the angle I'm going to sharpen it at. And with just the most subtle twisting pressure, kind of lock the knife in that position, and then I let the knife follow its own curve. As I get down to that belly, I just lift my wrist ever so slightly to follow that same curve. And it's the exact same thing on both sides. The knife will practically sharpen itself. All I gotta be there is to drag it across the stone. And if you want more detail on that, check out my sharpening tutorial. And whenever I apply pressure to the knife, it's never more than the weight of my hand. If I ever apply more than that, I make a note of it while I'm shooting the video. I tell you guys, I'm applying a little pressure here, and then I try to tell you how much it is in terms of pounds. I usually say, okay, I'm applying, I don't know, 4 or 5 pounds of pressure here. Which, if you go to any scale, place the knife on the scale and push down, you'll see 4 or 5 pounds is negligible. It's a very small amount. The bevel's starting to polish up real nice. Just gonna go a few more strokes. My 5000 grit Shapton Pro. Went under angle there. I don't know if you heard it screech at me. To get to the tip of the knife, I always let my finger ride on the tip like this, so I can feel when my finger is riding the stone. I know where that tip is in relation to where my fingertip is on the stone, and that allows me to hit the tip and grind it where I need to. I can feel exactly where that tip is by letting my finger ride on the stone. I don't spend a whole lot of time grinding in just one section. Even if I know there's a hiccup down there, I tend to just let it ride. I've found the more I concentrate in one area, and this is just me, it may not be for you, but the more I concentrate in one area, the more likely I'm to ground a low spot there and create more problems than just letting whatever hiccup I'm looking at go. So for me, I just find it easier to let it ride, leave it alone. So my homie Northwest Knife Guy has sent me some leather, and he's also sent me a bunch of 3M, I don't even know what you call it, lapping film to test out. And I've just been so busy with everything else, I've kind of put it on the back burner and haven't had the chance to really try any of it. I got an old wooden yardstick here that I had used for a piece of leather that I pretty much wore through. I don't know why it became like my favorite strop for some reason. I ripped the old leather off and put a strip of the stuff he sent me on, and I can't remember if I put white compound on this or the 1 micron diamond spray that I got from Triple B. Either way, this is what I'm going to strop on tonight. And seeing how this is flaking off on my knife, I'm betting this is probably white compound. Whatever it is, it's just peeling right off. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm gonna call this a bust. This is my Strop Brothers strop. I've got diamond compound on this side, white compound on this side. Looking at the color of this diamond spray, I'm going to have to say that was white compound on that strop. The entire front surface just peeled right the hell off. So first impressions of that leather are not very good. Let's see how this edge is. Got 80. $79. $136. So that averages out to 98. That 136 number may have been a fluke. I may not have had the tension set on the thread very well, but as I've said 1,000 times, whatever number displays on that thing, that's the number I'm going with. I'm not going to argue with it. I know it's not 100% accurate. It just gives you a ballpark to go on. Feeling this edge, because it's so thin, I know it's a laser beam. Let's show off Alex's work as well as my own. Looking at these bevels. You got them pretty symmetrical. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to show you guys thinness. Not really. Trust me though, behind the edge is nice and thin. But it's not so thin that I'm going to break the edge if I torque on it. The tip, perfectly symmetrical. Still thick and robust. He barely got up into the billboarding, which is freaking excellent, although I didn't mind, and I told him if he had to get up in there, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Do what you got to do. Make it pretty. The plunge grind, again, I should have shown you guys the plunge grind previously, his before and after pictures. He got it pretty much dead on. And let's take a final look at my edge. You can see a lot of the scratches in there are from the strop, I believe. Which strop, I don't know. I don't really care at this point. The knife is sharp, and then in the end, that is all that matters. Still got a little bit of a flare going on back here. So even his plunge line looks like it might have had a hiccup. And right here on both sides, the bevel widens just before the tip. Now I try to match it on this side, but I didn't do a very good job. Kind of made it worse, so I left it alone. Well guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, as always, leave them below. Make sure you give Alex a look and a follow, and if you got a knife you need reground, definitely give him a shout. The price makes it absolutely worth it. Y'all have a good one.